Welcome back to Stationeers. I'm in the hydroponics bay just to quickly check on our plant growth. It's fine. I did have it freeze up in the sorter. I just rebuilt the sorter and put it back down again and everything freed up. Again, remember those whole issues with sorter inputs. Sometimes they close and they just don't open again. That's just going to be a bug. There's nothing wrong with this sorter because there is no programming. It's literally just dropped down. So unless you want to put stackers everywhere in front of every sorter, which I don't want to do, that's going to have to wait. It goes. Hopefully that bug will be fixed fairly soon. But yeah, wheat is still growing. We've got wheat in here, 53, 17, and just to show you, the canister is doing pretty well. It's 75% O2 now, but otherwise it is pretty good. And what I should do, because I no longer need this, I think I'm going to reclaim all this pipe and passive vents as well, because we may need them a little bit later. Or not, we'll see. So today I wanted to cover sort of improvements, if you like. So, yeah, there we go. What are we going to improve? Well, what I was thinking was, well, first of all, someone did actually mention there is a wide type of light as well. I just thought I'd give that a go first. I haven't actually tried this, so let's see whether that actually is good or not. Wide, LED wall light, long, angled, long, wide. Interesting. That won't come on straight away, but let's actually just, well, leave that as is, and we'll turn them off and back on again. Let's see if that actually improves things. You can see how well the light illuminates. Well, you can't see it at the moment because it's off, but you'll see how that goes. So turn it off, turn it back on again. Oh, I think I need to turn them on by clicking on it. Yeah. Okay, and, oh, what? Shouldn't that be controlled? Or is it... Oh, they're a different type. Yes. So if I want to use that, then I'll have to have a different batch writer, because that's long and wide variant. But otherwise, it should be fine. And it seems to be okay. I'm not quite sure whether they give off different amounts of light or not, but it's fine otherwise. So if we just turn everything back on again. Yeah, seems okay. It's certainly illuminating that wall. If we just change that back again to the other variety. Are you any... what was the drill? Yeah, it is. There we go. Long, and we just have to turn that on. Is that any less, really? Doesn't look a lot much less, but maybe you can tell me, and we'll go from there. But anyway, I may well replace those with the wide ones, just in case they are actually slightly more light-giving. And yeah, it's looking pretty good otherwise. I just need to put the cladding on the roof, of course, and then start filling in walls, but we'll get to that soon enough. What we're going to do this episode is look at this system. Now, it has been heating up constantly, and it's actually working pretty well. I'm quite happy with it. Now, I'm not going to do too much more to this part of the system, because it's working fine. And I need to actually make some more steel, so maybe I should actually just put some more stuff in here, and then we'll you know, cook that up. But I won't do it just yet. What it strikes me as being a little bit inefficient is what we're doing during nighttime. So if you remember, we've got this system whereby at nighttime we exhaust everything back out again. We just get rid of it. However, we're doing that with gas that we've cooled because we're injecting the heat into our furnace. So what I think we could do is reuse that to inject that gas that's cold somewhere where we might want to use it. For example, right here. Now this system has been going constantly. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's just pulling in gas from the outside, and it goes in here. It goes down into this line here. There is a tank in that block, I think, which is why this one's here. And that then goes down over here and directly to our cooling regulator. Now, this one was set to 1 MPa, i.e. 1000 kPa. I have increased that to 2700 because on the inside here, this pipe network is up 1.8 MPa, so it was turning on, but nothing was happening because the pressure ahead of it was higher than the pressure behind it. Higher than the pressure it was set to. So that needed changing, but very, very quick change. The temperature did get up to about, I don't know, 40 degrees in the hydroponics, but it's now back down to a nice temperature again. Fine. So in order to improve this, we've got this cold line coming in, but it's not really cold. It's essentially whatever the atmosphere is, and it's because it's being pumped constantly. I haven't got any kind of control on this at the moment, I don't think. Is this just for my the heating side of things? So if we're reading the tank's temperature and we're comparing that, see if it's greater than 150. And then if so, we're back writing to coolers. Is that it? Yeah, so we're writing to coolers to keep it cold. What I think we can do is save a bit of energy to fix this. What we can do is that stuff that we're dragging out at night is going to be cold. We can put it into this pipe, and it should be relatively simple to do so, I think. So what we got to do is, instead of having active vent switching, what we'd have to do is have, I don't know, maybe it can't just be passive vents. It has to be something active, because we're going to need a volume pump, I think. So we'd have a volume pump out here somewhere. This is the output line. Volume pump, and we connect that to some pipes going to passive vents on the inside. And at night time, whenever we, instead of changing the mode of those active vents, we'd just turn them off. And then we would turn on a volume pump, and we'd send it into this pipeline. Now we have quite a bit of gas in here. That's the input. We have 7.6 MPa, and you'll see it's slightly mixed. That's what happens occasionally when I pull the carbon dioxide filter out. It gets mixed up with, like this, it gets mixed up with the gases that are already outside. So there's a little bit, but if we trace this down, it's going down here through our cooling system into our inside of our hydroponics. First of all, it's mixing with pollutant, which is cooling it down. This then filters out everything but pollutants, and the pollutants go into the hydroponics and back around. So the heat that we gather here from cooling hydroponics comes out onto this line, and then goes over here and around, and it's also connected to in there, but don't worry about that part of it. It goes over here and around. So let me just get there's the pipe, and it comes this way, and it comes into this line, which is the line that goes that way. And this has just the pressure regulator to make sure we always have some in here. And this line then goes into our heating room. So this is kind of like the backstop, if you like, if we need some heat to keep things hot. But otherwise, it's the waste from the heat that we pick up when we mix it with the pollutant, which is going through the hydroponics. So essentially, the whole system... Oh, and that's an issue with script subject atmosphere analyzer on screen update. Let's assume that's going to be fine. I need to restart the game if that's a serious problem. Just another issue with starting beta. So yes, where was I? Yeah, so we can use the cold gas at night to charge our system with cold gas instead of maybe whatever the temperature is. See, right now it's injecting 19 degrees C gas in there. So at night we can also shut this down. No, in fact, during the day we'd also shut this down independently. Again, probably on the same kind of detection settings, you know, that minus 50 degrees or something along those lines. And we'd shut this off whenever it rises above that, and instead just feed in gas from our exhaust. So we're using both the heated gas, and that's going to our furnace, and the cold gas, because we've separated the heat from it, to inject into the cooling system, or the cooling buffer, that we can then use to cool the hydroponics as well. Get me? Hopefully. So let's go ahead and look at doing that. First of all, I'm going to need a volume pump, and I'm going to need... we're going to need some of those passive vents, I think, and some pipe work. So I'm going to go and gather all that stuff up and see if we can assemble some stuff. Okay, so the one thing I want to make really clear here as well is that this is not a permanent solution, because when your temperature of your furnace is up to whatever we set, the whole thing is going to shut off. You know, we're not going to be constantly heating and cooling stuff when our furnace is fine. So it's only an additional system, so it's sort of like an extra, and maybe in combination with turning this on and off, I think we'll just deal with the filtration unit separately, just because I'm running out of pins and I don't want to have an encoder or decoder. It's just easier not to if you can get away with it. So I think we can just turn this on and off at temperatures, and we'll probably create a separate program for that at some point. However, I think I should be able to get away with, because I have one extra pin here for the internal gas sensor, I think. And I don't think I need that. I think I'm just using the outside gas sensor. I have it in the program, but I'm not actually using it. So yeah, we've got a volume pump. It's coming up here. It's coming across and in. Now, it is nighttime now, so we should be able to hopefully safely remove this, and then I can put some passive vents in place. Where are my passive vents? I brought them from the... there they are. I brought them from our hydroponics bay. Let's just pop down here, and then we will... Yep, just get rid of a couple of those. I'm actually going to... Oh, it's all been injected off the side of the building. I'm actually going to need that... Has it disappeared again? Oh no, there it is. Good, I'm going to need that. And we'll need to go inside for a second. So let's just see. The temperature in here should be fine. We're at nighttime, so everything's been drawn out of it. And I'm going to need temporarily to weld this back up again. So we're just going to need to get my welder. Okay. Whoops, turn it off, especially in an enclosed space. And then we just need to think about some passive vents. I think I'm just going to put a couple in, just mainly so I can get back out. That would not be good. And swap them over here and change it into a junction. There we go. So we have control of this. This unfortunately means anything in here will be visible in that pipe, which will be subject to heating and cooling on the outside. That's your downside. Yeah, do with that what you will. And we should be okay otherwise. So let me just grab both of those again. And let's just step outside and drop that off and then re-weld it again. We don't need any internal controls for this. It should all be external. So that's very good for me. I'm quite happy with that. And then I think we just go down here and then we connect up this side of things. So we want to connect up you. Yes, you're going to complain, but not for long. Should have stopped complaining now, hopefully. Yep, you're fine. And that means all we need to do is really hook up this to this cable here. Do I have enough heavy cable? I don't. I'm going to have to print some more. It's no big deal. Just a few bits of iron and there we go. There's no really good place for this, so we'll just put a corner going that way. And let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something along those lines. 4, so I only need 4 pieces of cable, and that should connect up. We can connect up into that particular point right there if I didn't want to do anything else, but I think it's slightly more even going that way. So yeah, then we'll have our volume pump enabled. And if we just grab our atmospheric analyzer again, hopefully this should still be, yeah, nothing, because basically our active vents are pulling everything out of that block right now, not just the stuff we want. Of course, that's what we're going to change in the program. So what do we go from here? First of all, I'll just refill my pipe work. And what do we need to do next? We've got the volume pump. That's all we need, I think. We need the computer back, so I'll bring that back up here, and then we'll look at doing that. Now, is there any situation I want where I wouldn't want to pump this stuff into that system? I think we're going to need a separate kind of blow-off valve of some kind if this cold gets basically too high. But that's only around 60 MPa. That's the pressure limit of pipes, and we're nowhere near that yet. We're under 10 MPa, so that's something we should think about. The thing we could probably do there is have a blow-off valve going, unless I've already built one. I really should have built one, but it shouldn't be hard because we can just go here somewhere. Yeah, for example, here. And if we hook it into this line right here, I think, was that the first input? Yeah, and in fact, anywhere into that line will do just fine. Have I really not put a blow-off valve? No. Okay, so we just put a blow-off valve here and going into this line right there. All that's going to do is if it ever hits, I don't know, let's say 50, it'll open. This is a back pressure regulator we're talking about, by the way, if you want to know what blow-off valve is. And it's just a safety valve, and there's another word for it. Whatever you want to call it there is fine. If it gets 50, it's going to open, and it's just going to feed stuff into this, which is going to go into the regular atmospheric system, which will then go into our tanks here. And this one's actually empty at the moment. I've not got anything going into this system other than sort of passively from, well, it was from a furnace over there, but that's no longer there. So we could think about, you know, maybe even a lower amount of pressure. If it hits 10, we could just export it, because 10's more than enough for our cooling system. We're only using it 7 right now, and the hydroponics isn't taking all that much. Of course, your system may vary if you've got a lot more plants growing. So yeah, I'm just going to get this cable printed, and then we'll come back for the programming bit. Okay, here comes the programming bit. Concentrate. So I've taken out the previous alias, which was for that gas sensor, and I've attached the volume pump, which I've called a cold exhaust pump, to that same pin. It's still called inside sensor, but we can change that easily enough. So let's just go in here. It's on D5. So this is now something, let's just call it cold exhaust. Yeah, cold exhaust is D5. And are we doing anything with on any kind of I don't think we were using it all that much. I think I removed the line from further down as well where we were using it. So you see we've got R0, 1, 2, etc. 7, 8, 9. So we can use anything from this onwards. So let's just use R3 when I get this manipulating these lines right. So a register for cold exhaust. Whoops. And X-chant? What on earth was I typing? Exhaust. There we go. And let's use R3. And then we're going to feed in that information. So down here is where I removed the line. It was right here on line 21. But of course, we're not using jump into lines anymore, so we don't have to worry too much about the line numbers. And we're going to load into our cold exhaust. Well, are we actually loading to our cold exhaust? Do we need to pull any information from it? I don't think we do. No, let's leave it alone for now, because we're just going to turn it on and off. So we can just deal with it as a device rather than anything else. All right, so further down, what we're basically doing here, we need to go to the point at which we're actually reversing things. So you'll see we've got these. So shutdown goes into shutdown mode. So on the shutdown mode, what we actually want to do is active vents. Is that actually a device as well? It is. So we want to, instead of changing the mode, we want to enable the cold exhaust. So cold exhaust is here, that's D5, and so we go down here, active vents, mode. This is where we change them back to mode 0. And we want to leave the mode entirely one way. We just want to change whether they're on or off. And you'll see shutdown here is setting them to off, which is already good enough. And shutdown, well, if it's shut down, we should also shut down the cold exhaust volume pump as well. Be a nice, considerate power user. So cold exhaust down here. We can change this, instead of being a mode, we can change cold exhaust. There I go again. Cold exhaust on 0. Okay, and wall coolers are off as well. That's fine. And then here we've got these other two sections. We've got where it should be cooling and inserting, and that's going into the warm section. Now that's the bit that everything is working fine. We actually want to make sure here that we also shut down the cold exhaust. So let's enter the line. cold exhaust on 0. Because there's no way we want to be pulling the gas back out of it again, okay? And then in the purge section, we need to make a change. So instead of changing the mode's always going to be 1, I think, for our active vents. And that's fine to be set there. In the purge mode, we just want to turn the active vents off. So instead of setting, is it setting on? Setting 0? Maybe it's setting for cold exhaust. Let's just check that. If I grab my that's my configuration cartridge, turn that on. Does this have a setting, or is it just going to be on off? It does have a setting. It's 10. Yeah, that's the actual the amount. So it's 10 liters. So I don't want to touch that. I only want to touch on and off. And setting for these is 50. Why is that even working? Why is this working? That should be on off. Okay, I will leave them alone. They're working fine, but you probably want to change on off. In fact, let's just change it. I wouldn't be happy if I didn't. So let's set this on 0. You can't just say off, unfortunately. And so turn the vents off, turn the exhaust off, and wall coolers should also be set off. So on 0. Hopefully this is going to work. If I have to set it back to setting, I'll just be annoyed. So warm, again, we'll just do the same thing. We're going to set them all on. And the mode, we do have to leave that, I think. Yes, is that the mode? Let's just have a look. Active mode. What are we actually doing with active mode? What are you connected to? Active vent, wall cooler, active mode is the active vents mode, which is the, yeah. Oh, I know why the settings. Oh, I'm being so stupid. The settings because we're writing to actually memory units, which are then doing things. Sometimes, sometimes I stagger myself with my stupidity, or at least my forgetfulness is usually the problem, not the stupidity. So setting, fine, and setting. Okay, so settings are fine. Wall coolers, no, in fact, that's not fine. It's the other one I want to change. That's the on setting. So anytime we deal with a cold exhaust, we want to change that to on. Heating is cold exhaust on 0. Shutdown is cold exhaust on 0. Purging is where we actually want to turn it back on. So this is where we want to empty the room. So instead of doing all of this, we want to do cold exhaust. Okay, and then on 1. And that will empty the room for us. And let's just check these other 3 instructions. So we're setting the active vents to on. We want to change that to off, I think. Yes, change that to off. The mode is we don't even need that instruction anymore. So we don't need to change that. And in fact, that probably means we can just set the mode manually and we can reuse that pin as well. So if we need that for, I don't know, maybe that gas sensor again, we can always reuse that. The wall coolers, again, should be set to 0. And I think that's it. We'll see. Are you going to complain? You are not going to complain, which is good. You can see that's already up to 1223. That's in Kelvin, remember. So we're setting things in Kelvin, so that will be like 373 degrees lower than that on our displays downstairs. But otherwise should be fine. So this is going to be okay. These should now change, no longer change mode. They will only turn on and off, and from there onwards. So down there, you should see that's off at the moment. And now we just have to see whether my program works. Who knows? Let's have a look at the nighttime. And this also has a side benefit in that before I fill these 2 blocks in with blocks, essentially to basically stop any heating of this thing or cooling, we can actually see what the inside of this room is like visually. So right now it's building up 2.7, 2.8 MPa, something like that. Temperature is 6 degrees. So you might think, oh, that's not very cold, except that it's 3 megapascals in there and it's still only 6 degrees. and it's 19 degrees out here, which is the temperature of the gas that's being drawn in. So realistically, that should be a lot higher than 19 degrees. But because we're cooling it actively, it's basically staying at quite a low temperature relative to everything else. And of course, if you want it even lower, you can add more wall coolers. There's no problem. Ooh, I have a roof now to stand on. There's no problem doing that if you want it to do it. And there we go. Yeah, we can see the same thing on this as well. And then at nighttime, we're going to inject essentially that gas at that temperature into the system that is, well, at the moment it's minus 13, but at the moment it's also adding 20-degree temperatures to it. So yeah, how that actually mixes, I don't know. We may have to put more wall coolers if we want to deal with that in any other way. All right, so yeah, I think that's pretty much complete, but I do have to wait until nighttime, unfortunately, to test to make sure that everything is working as we expect. And just before we get to the nighttime segment, I don't even need an IC for this side of things. I think once we've got this running, what's this actually doing again? Comparing the reader to the temperature sensor, I assume, and writing the wall cooler, so keeping things cool. Yeah, fair enough. I think we can just put in some more electronics. It'll be quite simple to do this. All we need is a gas sensor and leaving it out here somewhere. And then just we need a comparison. In fact, the same circuit we've got here, essentially comparing it to a value and then just writing 1 or 0. So if it's any point below, I don't know, let's say below minus 10 or something, it'll switch this on, otherwise it'll be turned off. And then we can make sure that both types of gases, whether the outside gas, which is, you know, sort of varying in temperature, and the cool gas that we are kind of processing, whenever that happens, yeah, we can make sure they all happen simultaneously to try and keep that input to our cooling system as cold as possible. And of course, we can ramp up the wall coolers, as I've said before. Okay, it turned on, and we're at minus 54 now. That is pulling through, but not very fast. So what I can probably do is just up this, and that should be much faster at pulling the atmosphere out. It is. Enough that that will probably get out of here pretty quickly during the night. And on this side, yeah, I mean, look at how much difference that is. That's actually feeding that fairly quickly. But it is slightly warming it. So we do need to think about cooling this more if we want to do that. But that's just a measure of the number of wall coolers we have. And yeah, so that is working. What did happen, however, when I was partway through this, I think we hit our target temperature. So I've upped that somewhat and to 1350 so that we can make sure that carries on. So I think that's working. I did have it cycling a few times as it was fighting around that shutdown temperature. I don't have a Schmidt trigger on the shutdown temperature, of course. So yeah, there may be some other stuff going. But yeah, it is evacuating. And it will do so, well, hopefully while it's out here. Fine. So if anyone's got any improvements, do let me know in the comments. Particularly if you want to get this gas even colder, or rather the furnace is hotter. I guess we could put that extra hot gas somewhere. Or we could build a bigger buffer, or we could send it somewhere else. There's no real issue anywhere other than that. We're just using that as an extra system to get rid of the gas once we're finished with it. And indeed, we could also even put like another release valve here. So, you know, if this is up to a certain value, we could think about, it's up to 8 MPa now, and that's rising quite quickly. So we might want to do something else with that. We don't want to overpressurize the system. So I do need that relief valve putting in at some point. As you can see here, it is actually feeding in quite quickly. Yeah. But that should populate during one night's trip. What we can also think about doing is if it hits dawn or hits, I don't know, a temperature again, we could also think about changing the mode on these and exhausting them as well. But I'll leave that to some comments, and maybe you want to suggest something. I'll put the updated version of the program. There may well be still be bugs in it. People do tend to find quick fixes and stuff like that. So I have actually changed the top value here to 1350. Other than that, it's a very simple program to the last one. We're just reusing that gas instead of just throwing it back into the atmosphere again. Both of it seems fine to me. Yeah. Okay, so if you like the episode, feel free to like, subscribe, share as you normally would. Let me know in the comments. And of course, as always, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time for some more Stationeers.